Hello and welcome to the final whistle with me, Steve Forbes.
And me, Kenzie Benali.
And a bit of a dismal afternoon here at St Mary's as Southampton lose 2-0 to Crystal Palace in the Premier League. A result that leaves Southampton rooted to the bottom of the table with 7 games to go. Now here to discuss the match with us again, we have Dean Hammond and Adam Lee.
In the second half. And so it proved. Palace did that. And unfortunately, Saints kind of just wilted, entirely wilted. There was just felt like there was so little fight, desire, positivity, kind of all the things they'd started on the front foot and they'd shown in those early exchanges when they'd created those chances just disappeared, and there was only ever likely to be one winner at that point. And it's unfortunately it feels like the stuck record. We've seen it all before. But to see it in again in a match of this magnitude where it kind of is pretty much do or die, to see them kind of going down with a whimper is just, as I said, depressing.
Yeah, Dean, Saints seemed to start the game with a lot of energy but just slumped in that second period.
I did, Steve, and I agree with what Adam said. Unfortunately, it's a hard day, really, because I think one of the hardest things to take from that, and probably most of the season, is there's not much between the teams, really. It's just there's a couple of opportunities that maybe Southampton had in the first half with Theo Walcott and a Rebo from a really well-worked set piece, really clever. If Southampton score one of those, it's a different game. It really is. And when Crystal Palace had their opportunities, they took them. And that's the difference at this level, unfortunately. It's really, really small. And once Crystal Palace are in front, if you're a Roy Hodgson team, the structure, the discipline the players have, it's really hard to break them down and get back in the game. And then they're really effective on their counter-attack. It could have been more towards the end, which would have been even worse for Southampton, really. But I agree with Adam. I think the shape confused Crystal Palace in the first half and caused them problems. We were looking for that direct ball over the top from the runs from Theo Walcott and almost got in on a few occasions. And it felt reasonably positive. And then in the second half, I don't know if the Southampton players felt anxious or they felt the pressure. They just looked a little bit leggy, a little bit low on energy, unfortunately. And Crystal Palace just came out on top because they were more clinical. And that's the difference, really. So I think that's the frustration, that disappointment, because there's not much in it. Southampton are not getting blown away. They're not getting completely outclassed. There's moments in the game where it gives you hope and it gives you belief, but then ultimately it's the same result and the same outcome. So that's why I think it feels hard and it feels a little bit low. But you have to go again. You have to. But unfortunately today, they just didn't have enough to get anything from the game.
Adam, both you and Dean mentioned that the way Saints set up in the first half seemed to take Crystal Palace by surprise. What did you make of that shape in the first half and indeed the few chances that were created?
Well, it was interesting. I mean, we asked before the game for a positive lineup, a positive mindset, positive way of playing. And I think that's what Saints came out with as well. I mean, Sellés, I think, I mean, it sort of looked like it was going to be 4-2-2-2. At times it really was 4-2-4. I mean, they were and they were also, as Dean mentioned earlier, not afraid to be direct at the right moments as well. And I think Palace just weren't ready for Saints playing like that. They obviously just were not prepared for it, because Palace didn't didn't look particularly leggy or like they checked out because they'd won a couple of games. They were just struggling to deal with Saints, frankly, and what was put in front of them. But again, it's Saints are not a team who regularly don't create chances in matches. They do. They're just not clinical enough. I mean, the brilliantly worked corner that led to that Aribo chance. You've got to be scoring. You can't be, but you've got to, well, the minimum you've got to hit the target. But you really should be scoring. I mean, Walcott, yeah, tightish angle, but you should be hitting the target again. Couple of other chances in there. Alcaraz, perhaps could have done a little bit better with a couple. They've got chances there. They're creating chances and just not taking them. And when you don't take them, you kind of know what's going to happen. Saints are not a good enough team that you expect them to get through matches without conceding chances themselves. And other teams are not like Saints. They're clinical. They punish them, and that's the problem. Saints in that first half, they had the half that they needed to probably win that match. You just go in 2-0 up, and it's the second half is a totally different affair to what we saw. But when you don't take those chances, you're just opening the door at this level, because you're 90% sure Palace are not going to come out and give you that space, that time, those opportunities they had in the first half. And just again, that lack of a clinical edge to Saints, and maybe, let's be completely honest, the lack of really a proper striker on the pitch again just costs them. Again, it's just so frustrating.
Well, Palace did take their chances in the second half. Eberici Eze breaking the deadlock. Can you talk us through his first goal, Dean?
Well, it came when there was really, again, not a lot in the game. It was pretty even, but Eze started it and finished it, really. It was a good switch of play from him. Goes out to Jordan Ayew, who's in a one-on-one situation, gets on the outside, kind of flashes a shot come across the box. And then Eze's the first to react, and his side puts it into the goal. And if you look at it and break it down like you do, Eze runs off Lavia. Lavia doesn't stay with his runner, kind of gets in behind him and then has to react too late. Maitland-Niles is in a one-on-one situation. Can Theo Walcott get out there and help him out and double up and force him backwards and make him play square or backwards? That doesn't happen. And it's just that small detail again. We've talked about it many times during the season. It's sensing the danger, expecting something to happen, expecting that Bazunu makes a save and where's the ball going to bounce? Where can I defend? Where can I protect the goal? Have a quick look if I'm a midfielder. Where are my midfield players? Are they going to make a run into the box? Those little small things. But if 1, 2, 3 or 4 players are not doing it, there's a chance that you're going to concede a goal. And that's what happened. But I have to say, Eze was different class in that second half. He was fantastic. I mean, what a player he is and what he's going to grow into. The switch of play for that goal, the calmness in his finish. I mean, we'll probably talk about his second goal, exceptional finish, and his all-round play where in the second half was brilliant. But that's no excuse. I think that goal could have been nullified. It didn't have to happen. But it's that small detail, Steve, that at this level counts so much. And for Southampton, really, it's both boxes. We're not scoring in the opposition box, and we're probably not defending well enough in our own box. And that's what's costing us and why we haven't got enough points, why we haven't kept enough clean sheets, and why we haven't scored enough goals this season.
Well, Adam, let's talk about Eze's second goal now. Was that just a case of giving him too much space and time?
Yeah, a combination of that and then a top quality player producing a terrific finish. I mean, yes, definitely. You look, the ball comes into him, Gineppo, he's not close enough to him to start with and makes a very kind of half-hearted attempt to kind of close him down. It's neither a challenge, it's neither bringing him down to stop him taking the shot. It's kind of just far too easy for him to shrug off. Lavia then is just a pace too far away to get across to him. And then he's got the time to line up the shot. And yeah, I mean, you have to say, in fairness, it's a absolutely fantastic strike. It's a absolutely brilliant strike. And Bazunu really no chance on that one. It's a tremendous finish. But again, it's the picture that Dean's painting there. It's just the little things. It's the little margins. Gineppo, you've got to be doing better than that. You can't allow players of this quality to just turn you like that and just give them the time for that. You've got to do something about it. You've got to be proactive about it, even if that means giving away the foul and taking your chances with the free kick. You've got to do something. You can't just let them do that. Look at the other end. Saints are not being afforded that kind of room and time and space regularly, and there's a good reason for that. It's because that's not how you defend. But it's these little things, it's these little mistakes. You make enough of them at this level, then you will get punished often, and that is just what happens with Saints week in, week out.
Dean, we're speaking about mistakes that are being made, but were there tactical issues today, or was it just a case of goals changing games and then heads dropping?
Probably a combination of them all, Steve. And I don't think the players' heads dropped. I think what happened, I think they showed the youth of the team today, the inexperience of the team, especially in that second half, when you're losing a game and you're trying to find a solution to get back into the game, to try and find a goal from somewhere where you haven't been scoring. It's really, really difficult. That's where the experienced players come in, because when you're an experienced player, you maybe, people talk about taking the game by the scruff of the neck. You maybe do something different. You maybe try something different. You maybe take a bit of a risk, take a bit of a gamble. And that didn't really happen today. Tactically, Adam spoke about it. First half, it was really good. We caught Crystal Palace by surprise and created opportunities. And you look at it, we've had the Joe Aribo chance from a really well-worked set piece. We've had the Theo Walcott chance. Alcaraz has hit the post. 2 minutes later, Alcaraz has a volley at the back post where he could do better. Bella Kocha has a strike from distance where Johnson makes a really, really good save. So there's 4 or 5 chances there, and we haven't been able to convert one. So I don't think the tactics were completely wrong. I thought they were very good in the first half. I think the players just, as soon as that goal went in, and I'm not making excuses, but I've been there myself. It's understandable when you're a young player, you maybe lose that little bit of hope and that little bit of belief that you're going to get back in the game, because we talked before the game how important it was to win today. And when was the last time, I would forget that, we scored 3 against Tottenham, but Southampton not scored twice, many times this season. So when you're 1-0 down and you've got to score 2 goals, it's difficult. It can affect you. It really, really can. And then when it goes 2-0, the game slows down. You maybe be a little bit more conservative with your pass. You don't go for that extra pass. You don't go for that shot. You don't go for the cross. Not intentionally, unconsciously, really, because you try to play a little bit safe, and it needed to be the opposite. That's when you take a risk. That's when you might take someone on. But it's difficult when you're such a young team, which Southampton are. Again, that's not an excuse. So tactically, good in the first half. Second half, Crystal Palace got it right. Southampton just found it very, very difficult to react.
Well, Dean just referenced it again there. I mean, we all knew the importance of this game ahead of kick-off. I mean, with Everton's defeat at home to Fulham today, Adam, that gap to safety hasn't got any bigger. But with that in mind, how do you assess Southampton's increasingly precarious position in the Premier League table?
It's, as we keep saying, it's the hope that kills you, really. And the fact that, 23 points after 31 games, they should be dead and buried. There should be no way back from where they are now. Or you would be looking at saying, okay, you've probably got to win, nearly all of your remaining 7 games. The way this season's panned out, that's probably not actually the case. It is only 4 points, only 4 points. The problem is, where are Saints even going to get those 5 by the time you take the goal difference, probably 5 points from us, probably picking up 2 extra wins on Everton, for example, before you even then account for Everton getting any more points this season. But it is still so tight. I think the problem that Saints have got when you look at the table, so I've sort of been playing a little game, myself since 20, probably about 25 matches into the season, looking at it, thinking, every week, like, who are the teams realistically, when you're looking for the ones that Saints may be able to finish above, like the points they've got now, the fixtures they've got coming. And that cabal of teams, which was quite vast, even probably 6 weeks ago, has slowly but surely shrunk. And now I think the reality is, with the fixtures they've got left, with the form they're on, and with the fixtures the other teams have, where there were a lot of other teams down there who've all got to play each other, and they're not all, clearly can't all lose all of those games. it becomes very, very challenging for them. And now probably you would have to say the three teams immediately above them, probably the only three teams that they could finish above now. So that's a very slim margin because they're already behind the 8 ball with the two teams that are on 27 points, got 4 points more than them to make up those points. So then you're just hoping that both of those teams basically completely tank and that you get those points. And unfortunately, you have to just be brutally honest at this point in time. If you can't, in the situation they're in, win a game like today, how can you make a case that they're going to get enough points to finish above three other teams? It's brutal to have to say it, and it's quite painful to have to say it, to be honest, but it's almost impossible to find any hope beyond simply continually saying, well, it's still only 4 points.
Subject of needing points, Dean. There's not really any fixture you want to see less than Arsenal away next at the Emirates on Friday night. How do you assess that one?
Well, a tough game, Stephen. But there's always, if you look at the history of the Premier League, there's always twists at either end of the table, whether it's the relegation battle or whether it's teams fighting for the title. Now, Arsenal are a fantastic team, and you'd expect them to blow Southampton away and expect them to win really, really comfortable. But we know football doesn't work like that. And Southampton have actually shown against the bigger teams, they probably perform better. And that we've got to hold on to that hope that will be the case as well. When you go to the Emirates, you've got to stay in the game. You really have, as long as you possibly can. And I know we haven't been, but you have to be ruthless if you do get opportunities, because there isn't going to be that many. What you will get is the fact that Arsenal will open up and there will be spaces on the counter-attack. So that may help. But it's going to take a huge effort from all the players. And you're going to have 11 players playing at their maximum, at their absolute best to get anything out of this. But I agree with Adam. It seems impossible, but it is possible. It can happen. We've seen crazy results, and there's 7 games of the season left. This is the next one. Prepare well during the week and just hold on to that hope. And there's a chance, and you just have to hold on to it, Steve. But the biggest test, really, because they're the best team in the league this season. They've been fantastic. They've got some brilliant players. But let's hope these younger Southampton players can raise their game and play at their best and get a result.
Yes, indeed. Well, Adam, let's come to you for your thoughts then. How are you feeling ahead of that game against Arsenal?
Well, not confident. I think it's fair to say. Yeah, I mean, it's such a difficult game for them. I mean, I'm with Dean. You look at how they've done this season. They generally have put up better performances. Well, what I'd say is they're a young team. And one of the things about being a young team is that sometimes young teams, young players who are not used to playing under the intense pressure that comes in the Premier League, they kind of buckle under the pressure. And that's why you want experienced players in there, because they can kind of bring them along with them. They know how to handle those moments because they've been there, they've seen it, they've done it, and they've experienced it. And so Saints have buckled in the pressure games. The pressure games for Saints are playing the teams around them, and they've played a lot of teams that are around them recently, and they've pretty much lost all of them. It's going to Arsenal. There is no pressure on them at all. Everybody expects one result, and that's for them to get absolutely thumped. But don't forget, there's one thing you would say: the pressure on Arsenal is ratcheting up massively. They got to play Man City, I think, after they play Saints. This is do or die for their title ambitions now. They can't afford a slip up. They know that. Chances are they probably will get through that game, but don't underestimate the amount of pressure that is on Arsenal in that match. And there is no pressure really on Saints because everybody expects them to get beaten. Maybe, just maybe, there is a small glimmer because of that in that match. But the reality of where Saints have got to now is that they're going to need to get some unlikely results to stay up. Probably just winning the games that you think they will probably not going to be enough now. So they're probably going to need to do something that you wouldn't expect. I can't logically make any argument for them getting anything at Arsenal, let alone winning. But as Dean said, it is a funny game. And with Arsenal under the amount of pressure they're under, you just need perhaps to play a determined game where you kind of really keep it tight, where they start to get a little bit nervy. Maybe you get a little bit of luck along the line. They miss a few chances that they normally take, and suddenly the pressure's on them, and maybe, just maybe, they wilt a little. But you really probably couldn't handpick a worse game to have. And next weekend as well, just the double whammy on Saints is that obviously they play Friday, and when you look at the fixtures next weekend, you've got a lot of those teams that are in that area immediately above Saints playing each other. So yeah, I mean, you really want to try and get something if you can next weekend, because otherwise you fear that the table is going to make pretty grim reading after next weekend if you can't.
Adam, Dean, so great to have you with us on the show as always. Thanks for your company and thank you for watching. Do make sure you join us as we build up to that match at the Emirates to take on Arsenal. It's an 8 p.m. kickoff, so we'll be live from 6:45. We'll see you then.
Bye for now.